I'm Paloma Sanchez-McGee with Investigate Midwest, and this is Behind the Byline. Today, I'm joined with Melissa Dai, Investigate Midwest 2025 summer reporting intern, whose investigation, Broadband's Broken Promise, How Federal Failures and Funding Bites Keep Native and Black Farmers Offline, earning multiple journalism awards. This story examined how gaps in internet access continue to leave many Native and Black farmers at a disadvantage despite billions of dollars in federal broadband investments. The investigation drew on months of reporting, extensive data analysis, and interviews with dozens of sources across the country. Melissa, thanks for joining me.
Of course, happy to be here.
So, for people who may not know you, can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about where you are now?
Of course. So, yeah, I was the reporting intern last summer, summer of 2025. So that was after my junior year of college. I go to Northwestern University, where I'm currently a senior. I'm actually about to graduate in a week, which is crazy this weekend. So here I study journalism, psychology, and integrated marketing communications. I am also currently working as an apprentice investigative reporter for the Investigative Project on Race and Equity, which is a Chicago-based investigative newsroom. Investigative reporting is my passion, as I discovered through a Medill program. That's what led me to Investigate Midwest, and I was so happy to be here.
And how did this kind of broadband story come about?
Yeah, so I went into the internship knowing very little about rural issues. And when it was time for me to pitch my own stories, my own investigations, I was just browsing through a bunch of news clips, a bunch of USDA reports, just reports in general, advocacy statements, stuff like that, just looking for a story anywhere. And in this one USDA fact sheet, there was one statistic boxed into the very bottom corner about the percentage of farms operated by Native American farmers with broadband access. And I don't quite remember what the number was exactly, but it was strikingly low because of, we're in this digital age where internet seems like just another commodity that, everyone has. So it just seemed really low to me. Pitched the story to Lauren, our audience engagement editor. That's correct? Yeah. She thought it was really interesting as well. And from there, I dove into the data behind that specific statistic because I was looking at sort of like a watered down fact sheet. I wanted to get the actual numbers behind it, what led to this statistic. And through an analysis of that, I discovered the disparity where every racial group was above the national average of farms that have internet access, but the two below were Native American farmers and Black farmers. And that's obviously the disparity that we see in most walks of life, very unfortunately. But yeah, and I did a lot of coverage. I scanned a lot of coverage existing about this digital divide, and I found that no one had covered this issue before. There was no reports, there was no articles or anything about specifically the digital divide along racial lines on farms. There's obviously been a lot of coverage on the digital divide, like rural versus urban, the racial disparities there, but nothing about farms specifically. And as I came to discover through my reporting, it's a very critical disparity for farmers because broadband high-speed internet offers a lot of benefits to farmers. It offers a lot of competitive advantages and a lot of safety measures. As I wrote at the intro of my story was about how internet really is a critical safety issue and necessity for farmers who are doing a lot of dangerous work. It is very, very essential, and it's a huge shame that there is this disparity that puts a lot of Black and Native farmers at a disadvantage.
And what was like the most surprising thing that you learned while you were reporting?
I think it was just that internet, I don't know. I think a lot of times because internet is such a pervasive thing now, like everyone has it essentially, it feels like it's easy to forget how important it truly is. So even though it seems so blatantly obvious that internet is essential for things like emergency communication and safety, I think that kind of hit me the hardest. Like when I was hearing from these farmers, these anecdotes about how when they needed help, they couldn't access it because they couldn't call for it. I think that just like made me realize, like, get out of this haze that I've been in, like where internet is just so natural and so pervasive. And I just like realized how serious this gap is. I think that was definitely like the hardest hitting part of my research, because obviously internet offers a lot of like farm specific advantages, like I mentioned, like precision agriculture. That's a big part of my story, which uses technology like GPS mapping and sensors, remote sensors, to streamline operations. That can provide a huge advantage to farmers, but ultimately, like when it comes down to it, safety is like the number one priority, and a lack of internet access was threatening that.
Hmm. Hmm. Was there like a source or an interview or just like a moment that like really stuck with you that kind of like added on to just the surprisingness of how important internet is?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna tie it back to my previous answers. The anecdotes that I heard from farmers who had experienced safety issues and couldn't call for help. Like the opening of the story, Kelsey Scott, a native farmer, she a wildfire hit her farmland, and her ranch, and she was able to call for help. But then I heard from a Black farmer, John Boyd Jr., who just couldn't, and he lost a um giant amount of money trying to replace the combine that caught on fire. And I mean, he was able to evade any personal danger, thank goodness. But I think just hearing those stories really put it into perspective. That was again the most hard-hitting part of it for me.
Hmm. Hmm. This was a pretty like ambitious story for a summer intern. What support did you receive like from the team as you worked on the project, and what were also some challenges?
So yeah, looking back, it was incredibly ambitious. I don't know how I did it. Like did the bulk of it within 8 weeks, with like a few weeks after to wrap it up. I think it was really, really helpful having the team behind me that I did. Lauren was my point person throughout all of it. Like we checked in every day, which I'm sure you do as well,
Hmm.
just to catch up on progress, discuss next steps, all of that. That was really, really helpful. It was a very anchoring presence for me throughout the whole process. And then the rest of the team was more than available for like any for consultation about anything, whether it's sourcing, like reporting processes, just like literally everything. I knew I could turn to the EIC, Ben Felder, or Erin for anything. And it was just like the editing process went really smoothly with them. And one thing I will shout out is Investigate Midwest is very, very committed to transparency, which I really appreciated. So I am ordinarily like a very organized person. So I really liked how like my keeping track of all my sources, all my like references, like these every single article I reference in the story made its way into the finished product. At the very bottom, there's a list of all my references and everything, like all my interview dates and everything like that. I think just like a shout out to Investigate Midwest for maintaining that commitment to transparency throughout the reporting process. I really enjoy that. So, yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. How do you think you've grown as a reporter from before the internship to now?
So prior to the internship, I had done a total of one solo investigative story, and it was about a completely different topic. That was my first ever experience. It was through the Medill Investigative Lab, the program that got me into investigative reporting in the first place. Like I had some experience doing solo investigative
Mhm.
reporting, but I think what drew me to this internship in the first place was how much agency I was able to have as a student journalist, like joining a newsroom for literally just like 11 weeks. They let me like, I mean, the entire structure is centered around like me doing my own reporting, my own two big stories. Whereas I think at a lot of other publications, a lot of other newsrooms, interns don't really get that freedom. They're more like contributing to other projects. So I was I really loved this sort of structure that gave me so much freedom to do my own work. Yeah, so I had some experience prior, but getting to do it again and completely remotely too, that was a big thing. Like Investigate Midwest is a remote newsroom, so I was working remotely the entire time. I did all my interviews and everything over the phone, over Zoom, stuff like that. And I think it just showed me ultimately that I could go beyond the limits of what I thought investigative reporters face. Because like investigative journalism, when I used to think about it, was so like on the ground. And when I mean, obviously, ideally, it always should be on the ground, but in like national scale stories like this that touch on every corner of America, I think this like having that flexibility to work remotely and to work very independently, still with the guidance of your mentors and your newsroom was a transformative experience, and it just showed me like just expanded the bounds of what investigative journalism can be for me.
So since this story has received a lot of recognition and awards, kind of what does that mean to you, especially going from your investigative reporting experience before, but now like having the whole remote internship and then being able to kind of do it all on your own? Like, what does this all mean to you?
Yeah, so obviously it's a huge honor. I won the North American Agricultural Journalist Student Writing Award for this year, and I also won the Society of Professional Journalists Mark of Excellence Award for investigative reporting within my region, my school's region, so Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky, and then it went on to win the national award. That was a huge surprise, a huge honor, really great way. Again, I like learned of the news a week or so ago, and I'm graduating in 2 weeks, so it was a really great way to finish out my college career. But more than anything, I think I'm just really glad this topic is getting more exposure because, like I said, it had never been reported on prior. So it's a very critical gap in the reporting, and I'm glad I was able to fill it. And now I'm glad that these awards ultimately they're about recognition and like more exposure. So not only was my work being recognized by the Society of Professional Journalists and the North American Agricultural Journalists, but also just the topic and the importance of the topic that was being recognized. And I really appreciated that.
Awesome. And kind of looking back, what are you most proud of about your story?
So this was my most comprehensively sourced story I've ever written. Again, like this, it's not a big portfolio in terms of like solo investigations, two total so far. But the my first story, I talked to a lot of people, but this story I talked to many, many people, 40 over 40 people, 40 like farmers, advocates, experts, officials, etc. It doesn't sound, I don't know if it sounds like a big number in the grand scheme of things, but I was like interviewing multiple people almost like every day. It was like a very intensive process of just speaking to a lot of people and consolidating all their perspectives into one cohesive story. I think that was my highlight of the entire thing because I was able to keep track of so many different perspectives and write a coherent piece from it. And of course, like the diversity in perspectives was essential to the story.
Definitely. And 40 sources in 8 weeks is impressive. I mean, just to get a hold of that many people is very impressive. So, why do you think programs like Investigate Midwest's internship program matter for both young journalists and like communities that these stories serve?
Yeah, I mean, journalism and investigative journalism, especially, are more essential now than ever. Hard-hitting journalism about disparities and about the issues that have gone overlooked for so long. I think Investigate Midwest does a really good job of honing in on the issues because, again, a lot of people don't think about rural America. Investigate Midwest makes people think about that, and I really appreciate that. Investigate Midwest has a really dedicated and niche audience, and I think having their stories on a bigger platform is really beneficial to them.
Is there anything else that you would like to say for the readers or the supporters of Investigate Midwest?
Just thank you again to the team at Investigate Midwest for helping me make this story possible and for giving me such a great experience last year. I'm glad that you and who is the this year's reporting intern?
It's Casper Dowdy.
That's it. Okay. yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys do. And I'm really excited to keep up with your work.
Gotcha. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for joining us and congratulations again on all of your awards. Investigate Midwest is an independent, nonprofit newsroom that serves as a watchdog over influential agricultural corporations and institutions. Support from readers and donors helps make reporting and internship opportunities like this possible. For more in-depth and data-driven investigative journalism, head to investigatemidwest.org and sign up for a newsletter for more Behind the Byline content. I'm Paloma Sanchez-McGee. Thanks for watching.